So Kamala Harris went on Colbert last night. It was one reject consoling another. It felt like Tim Walz giving himself a pep talk in the ladies' room mirror. It was Kamala's first interview since her brutal election loss. But I wonder, is she there to sell a book?
I talk about it in the book. What I talk about in the book. So this book, I talk about in the book. I hope by writing this book.
Greg Gutfeld turned his attention to Stephen Colbert, and it wasn't just another roast. It became a full-scale comedic takedown. Stephen's smug style and predictable punchlines couldn't hold up against Greg's sharp wit and fearless humor. What came next was a relentless dismantling of everything critics say feels forced about late-night comedy. No polished scripts, no audience cue cards, just Greg tearing down the image, one joke after another. If Stephen were the king of smug, Greg would march straight into the castle and rip up the playbook before walking away.
Beat all these guys at my show, and we're only in 61 million homes. CBS reaches nearly 300 million Americans. They don't talk about that. He also had 200 staffers. I employ nothing but teenage runaways. And by the way, I don't even pay them. Ha! Anyway, I love how they claimed it's a financial reason, but everything is a financial reason, right? If you open up a restaurant, you serve lousy food, people stop coming, you close it, you don't say because the food sucked. You said, whoa, it was a financial.
Stephen Colbert is what happens when late-night comedy stops chasing laughs and starts leaning into smudness. He's the kind of host who seems so pleased with his own jokes that you'd think the applause was already guaranteed. At this point, some critics joke that calling his show comedy is like calling a microwave a five-star kitchen. Greg Gutfeld didn't just roast him, he came in with a non-stop wave of sharp jokes aimed right at everything Colbert's critics say he ignores. And when Gutfeld gets going, the irony doesn't just show up, it crashes through the door with fireworks and steals the whole show.
Take your power away. It's the whole reason you're sitting in that crappy chair and Trump is relieving himself in a toilet made of gold. But the interview is amazing for giving you a glimpse of an alternate universe where misery is redefined as joyful and the winner is still a monster. In the extended interview posted online, Colbert longed for better days before Trump kicked her ass. Because less than a year ago, things were very joyful.
Just less than a year ago, things were very joyful. There was actually a lot of hope associated with your campaign. And
Then there's Stephen, who built his whole image around being the smartest guy in the room, but somehow forgot that the role actually calls for real wit. Instead, he delivers political punchlines that many critics say feel stale, forced, and long past their expiration date. Greg didn't have to search very hard to spot the weak points. Critics argue that Stephen's polished image is held together by ego, old-school media habits, and audience reactions that feel more produced than genuine. If you're tired of polished comedy that feels forced, hit the like button. And don't forget to subscribe for bold comedy and commentary that says exactly what's on its mind.
Last night, Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, John Oliver, and Jon Stewart showed their support for Stephen Colbert by appearing on his show. It's the most laughs network TV had since they showed Sophie's Choice with limited commercial interruption. Since Colbert's firing, Jon Stewart told CBS to go F yourself, and Colbert told Trump to go F yourself. Wow, $100 million worth of writers must really have paid off.
He went from being known for clever satire to becoming someone critics say repeats familiar political talking points. These days, many viewers feel he spends less time telling jokes and more time delivering commentary with punchlines mixed in. And whenever he tries to sound bold, even his expressions seem to work overtime, as if they're trying to sell the moment before the joke ever lands. Greg looked at the whole routine and asked the question many critics have been raising. How long can someone keep calling themselves fearless while sticking to the safest material every night?
So, Joe, I couldn't help but notice Kamala's face when Colbert was talking about how joyful it was. She looked at him like he was insane.
Yeah. He was. By the way, congrats on Fallon. I don't mean to one-up you, but I'm in talks with the people at the Mike Douglas.
Yesterday, New York Governor Kathy Hochul declared a state of emergency in NYC due to severe flooding. Still not sure if it was caused by the rain or this man's tears.
Some critics joke that Steven's idea of being rebellious is putting on his glasses and nodding confidently at the camera. They argue that much of his comedy leans on irony, dramatic delivery, and carefully emphasized lines. Greg looked at that familiar desk monologue style and picked it apart with the confidence of someone known for sharp timing, quick delivery, and making jokes without forcing the moment. To many of his critics, when Steven tries to be funny, it can feel more like a dramatic classroom presentation than a natural comedy routine.
Reason, right? If you open up a restaurant, you serve lousy food, people stop coming, you close it, you don't say because the food sucked. You said, well, it was a financial reason. But they didn't just they didn't cancel his show. They canceled the whole show.
Yeah.
This was a quote institution, and they said rather than put somebody in his place.
Critics say the real joke is that Stephen Colbert still acts like he's pushing boundaries, even though many feel his comedy now plays it safe. Greg Gutfeld took aim at that polished style, arguing it relies more on moral speeches than sharp laughs. To his critics, Steven's monologues can feel more like lectures than late-night comedy. Greg didn't need flashy props or gimmicks, just quick jokes and sharp timing. Rather than simply roasting Steven, he challenged the image that many believe late-night TV has been trying to protect for years.
But they never get that the free market means exactly that. Free to fire someone who's stinking up a market. Like they took a dump in the produce section. That show, his show, was like the dope who maxes out his credit card because he thinks the stripper really likes him. Ooh, you got 2 jokes for the price of 1. But that's not fascism, that's math. But for the left, math is what happens to others.
Some critics joke that Steven's studio audience feels less like a crowd and more like a built-in laugh track, always ready to cheer at the expected moments. They argue the reactions can seem rehearsed instead of natural. Greg used that idea to question whether the show still feels genuine. Critics also say Steven's political commentary often sounds more like repeating popular online opinions than offering fresh insight. For them, Greg's criticism wasn't just about the jokes, it was about challenging what they see as a polished but predictable formula. Rather than treating Steven like a comedy rival, Greg portrayed him as someone relying on an old routine that no longer feels as bold or original as it once did.
Predictable outrage ensued with demands that Colbert be fired. 2 days later, he responded.
If you saw my monologue on Monday, you know that I was a little upset with Donald Trump for insulting a friend of mine. So, at the end of that monologue, I had a few choice insults for the president in return. I don't regret that. So while I would do it again, I would change a few words that were cruder than they needed to be.
So he didn't regret the joke, only the language. Again, I don't care. It's jokes.
Critics say Stephen Colbert likes to present himself as the moral voice of late-night TV, but they argue that image has become harder to take seriously over time. Greg Gutfeld took aim at what he sees as the contradictions, suggesting the show often stays comfortably within familiar opinions instead of taking real risks. To his supporters, Greg's criticism wasn't complicated. It was simply pointing out a formula they believe has become predictable. They argue many episodes follow the same pattern: familiar political jokes, dramatic reactions, and audience approval wrapped up as comedy. For them, Greg wasn't just criticizing Steven's routine, he was questioning the entire style of late-night television that they believe has grown repetitive and less entertaining.
I think that my show exists is because of the arrogance and the ego and the assumptions that the liberals have who turned comedy sideways. You know, people find my show entertaining because I'm saying things that they're thinking that they thought they couldn't say because everybody else has made it so suffocating. I also have, like, I take issue with the biggest lie you're seeing here, which is that, you know, Colbert or Kimmel were somehow risk takers. They've had very long, rewarding, lucrative careers doing exactly what was expected from them. Just so happens the audience found an alternate.
Critics say Stephen Colbert still presents himself as the host he's in on the joke, but they argue that his style no longer feels as fresh as it once did. Greg Gutfeld's criticism wasn't just aimed at a fellow late-night host. It challenged what he sees as a formula, where sharp comedy has been replaced by predictable commentary. To his supporters, Steven's serious moments often feel more dramatic than insightful, while the polished set and production can't make up for jokes they believe missed the mark. Greg's approach is much simpler, relying on quick timing and direct humor instead of elaborate presentation. His critics of Stephen argue that modern late-night TV has become too comfortable, and Greg's biggest question was simple: how did this become the standard, and why do so many people still treat it as great comedy?
I mean, imagine being a chef, you're such a bad chef that they cancel food. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I guess he's less popular than Shingles, but you get this, it's so obvious. You can't do a comedy show and a sermon at the same time. Your job is to say something funny, not being the show that says, that's not funny, about all the things that are just too grim to talk about. I'm old enough to remember when they used to say, the TV critics used to say that the right can't be funny. Well, guess what? You know what kills your funny bone?
Critics say Stephen Colbert is clever, but they argue that cleverness means very little if the comedy no longer makes people laugh. Greg Gutfeld used that point to argue that late-night TV has drifted away from being bold and unpredictable. To his supporters, this wasn't just a roast of one host. It was a criticism of a style of comedy they believe has become too polished and predictable. They say Stephen's show now follows the same safe formula night after night, while Greg's approach feels more direct and willing to take risks. In their view, Greg didn't just challenge Stephen's act, he pulled back the curtain on what they see as a late-night format that has lost much of its original edge.
But are we on the precipice of entering a censorship state?
We are on the precipice of entering a censorship state in which Donald Trump is using the powers of the federal government in order to erase criticism from the airwaves. Stephen Colbert didn't get thrown off the air because he wasn't doing well.
Why's he doing that on the toilet?
Just like that, the curtain didn't simply fall, it felt like the whole performance had been turned upside down. The confident smile faded, the familiar monologue lost its spark, and Greg Gutfeld stood back with a grin. Not because he had bigger production or more writers, but because he reminded viewers that great comedy doesn't need endless cue cards or camera nods to land. Critics argue that as long as Stephen Colbert keeps serving the same familiar satire mixed with a heavy dose of self-confidence, his biggest punchline may be the direction his own career is taking. They say he has gone from sharp political satire to becoming the kind of predictable figure he once joked about. Meanwhile, Greg keeps relying on quick timing and direct humor. To his supporters, Stephen's struggle isn't just about one show, it's a sign of a late-night format that has lost its edge. And if this really is a battle over the future of comedy, they believe Greg is only getting started.